Hi, my name is Miro, and I'm going to talk to you today about vaccinations. Now, this is probably the most controversial topic on the internet. And in fact, during COVID, even saying the word vaccinations would get all your social media accounts banned, you'd be blocked for life, and Google would blacklist you. So hopefully we're past that, because I'm going to talk about vaccinations again on this one. So let me start with a little bit of background history. Vaccinations were originally developed. One of the first vaccinations was actually cowpox. What they found is that people that worked with cows and cattle often contracted cowpox, which was basically a mild skin infection, and then they never got smallpox, which is a big thing because smallpox is a pretty high level mortality. So what happened was, hey, if we would take the open sores of cowpox and expose that to regular people, that would give them immunity for smallpox, which is a huge development, right? So that's very, very fundamentally how vaccination started. What happened was over the subsequent 100 years, we had developed more and more vaccines. A couple of things that happened. So let me address the regular ones with childhood. I was born in Yugoslavia at the time, which is a communist country, and I got whatever vaccine they had. They would just roll them out. They come to the schools, everybody got vaccinated. When I was 5 years old, I moved to Canada as an immigrant, and then I got all the vaccinations. And then when I was older, I worked in a hospital, and again, I got a bunch of vaccinations, plus the regular vaccinations people get that work in healthcare, right? Fast forward, I had my kids, and I went through the vaccination list. And usual ones, measles, mumps, rubella, fine. I was in the generation that actually got chickenpox as an illness instead of the vaccination. Where I got stuck, and this is about 25 years ago, when my kids came up on their vaccination schedules, there was stuff on there I didn't understand. Like, one of my favorite points to make was, why are you giving a newborn a hepatitis vaccine? We got hepatitis working in the medical field because you're exposed to sharps, body fluids, all this other stuff. So hopefully your newborn isn't going to have a drug habit or working in the hospital, at least until they're maybe toddlers, right? To kind of being a smart aleck over here. But that was my concern. My concern is you're giving kids so many unnecessary vaccines, right? I also have a second issue with the pharmaceutical industry, again, is always on the leading edge of stuff, but they're always bringing out new stuff without really the ability to test their large population base. I'll give you an example of different medications. Like, when I was a kid, when I was a teenager, we had this anti-allergy medicine called Sudafed, and it was amazing. You take one pill, 3 days, no allergies, no side effects. It was great. And a couple of years back, I'm like, you know what? My allergies are acting up. I got to find this medication. I looked it up, and that medication caused heart problems. So I guess there was a side effect after all. So I tend to look at things like vaccinations and just pharmaceutical drugs in general from the lens of, how long has it been out, right? There are medications that people have been taking, millions of people have been taking for 50 years. That's the drugs for me. Like, I prefer taking something like penicillin or amoxicillin instead of a Z-Pack, or instead of some of these other fluorine-based antibiotics. So that's been my personal experiences. The side effects have been proven not to be that severe over a very long term. My problem with vaccinations right now is, number one, it sounds kind of like a money grab. Everybody's saying, oh, we'll have this, that. The COVID vaccine specifically, there's no way they can develop a vaccine in this short time and test it for safety, efficacy over a large population base, right? So they roll this thing out and force everybody to take it, which I personally think was crazy, right? I want no part of it. I'm not taking it. No, thank you. Now, again, this is my personal observations and stuff. So when I talk to people about vaccinations, I'm not an anti-vaccine guy. I'm like, I think vaccines are a great idea. I think, I think you should absolutely have vaccines. I think for a lot of the childhood illnesses, I think getting chickenpox is better for you than getting the vaccine, because you have your body fights it off, whatever else. One of the biggest things that I've seen happening in the last little while is people that are too clean have allergies, food allergies, weakened immune system. Yet you see people coming up from these poor countries and they're indestructible because they're eating dirt, their environments weren't that clean. And there's very much a thing where you train your immune system on real bacteria and real obstacles, right? So I think that's from a mindset that's important. Now, what happens is with vaccines, people are like, do you trust the government, right? And am I a conspiracy guy? A little bit, but I always look at where does the money go, right? Who's making the money? Where does the money go? Are they doing this from an overwhelming interest of public good, or are they doing it from the overwhelming interest of making $30 billion? I'm not going to lie. If someone said, hey, Miro, here's $30 billion, can you put up a video saying, you know, we love your stuff? Absolutely. Like, no problem. I'll take that. I'll make that video from my yacht. I'm not, I'm not above that. But that's number one, right? Number two, the safety concerns that I have is any treatment will harm a segment of the population, right? At that point, it becomes a math problem, right? It becomes a math problem where, okay, so if your chance of dying from, let's say, a snake bite is 1 in 3, and 1 in 20 people have a reaction to the antivenom, you got to do that math, right? But what I don't like, what I really, really don't like is the misinformation. I don't like the misinformation, and I don't like the propaganda with it. Very specifically with this whole vaccine question. You go back 10, 15 years, and the vaccine thing was very much a question of, you know, your own personal choice, your own personal preferences. What I don't like is being villainized. You're either 100% in or you're anti-science. I'm not anti-science. Anti-science is them hiding vaccine reactions, them overblowing the numbers. That's what I don't like. And I don't like anything that shuts down a discussion. I think it's very important to question everything. I think it's very important to look at the data and say, what does the newest data say? I've seen some research articles lately of, okay, the hepatitis vaccines may be a contributing cause to autism because the autism numbers are exploding. Now, does that mean that it's caused by autism? I don't know. I think very often a lot of these health issues that we're seeing are a cumulative effect, where it's you have plastics, hormones in food, GMO, you have all these different contributing factors. And I think if you're going to do any kind of vaccines, you should do your homework. I'm not going to end this video and say vaccines are good or vaccines are bad. I'm going to end this video and saying you need to look at beyond the numbers and make your own educated and informed decision. And I really, really resent the fact that on both sides of this debate, you have anti-vaccine guys like, all vaccines are bad, you know, run away. And you have the other guy saying, well, just shut up and take whatever they give you. And I don't subscribe to that, because behind all this supposed science are people and corporations that have a very significant financial incentive to nudge things a certain way. So make your decisions. I want you to empower yourself, make your decisions, and make them the best you can for yourself and your family. And that's really my stance on vaccines, is do your homework and then make your choices from there. Thanks for coming out.